What is going on, YouTube? It is Primitive here, and today we are going to be hopping into the future a little bit with a BT11 decklist profile. Now, we don't know what format Nationals is going to be yet, so I have to be testing BT11 and EX3, and BlackWargreymon X Antibody is super insane. It is very powerful. It is just a huge upgrade to the deck, and this is going to be something that's very potent in the BT11 metagame. And this deck is also extremely fun, in my opinion, so I wanted to bring the list that I've been using here for you all, so that way you get kind of an idea, or maybe a base list going into the next format. But as always, we are going to be going through this one card at a time, so let's get on into it. Alright, so starting off, as always, with the Digitama, we have 4 Koromon from BT5, which, when you swing and you have Greymon or Omnimon in your name, you get to draw a card, and I like the consistency of this just because we are going to have multiple cards that you can put in your stack that'll give you a DP boost, and so I didn't see the DP eggs to be as necessary, and I also didn't really see a 5th egg being as necessary. There were a couple games where a 5th egg would have been nice, but I don't think it would have altered the game state, because at that point when I went through like 4 stacks, I was already really low on resources. So I just wanted to go with the 4 eggs to keep it consistent, and I just liked the draw, but you could put the DP boosting eggs here. I don't think it really changes too much from what I've seen. I just liked the consistency a little bit more. Now, getting on into the rookies, we have one of the new Agumon X Antibody. I didn't want to put too much of this in here just because there aren't as many champions that can Digivolve on top of Black Digimon, so I didn't want to dilute my bottom end as much. I was playing this as a one of the plus 1k your turn, plus 1k DP inheritable Agumon, and I decided to change it for this just because you do get some search and some consistency, and there have been multiple times where I keep bottom decking Yuya, so I think having something that searches it and hits it makes it a little bit safer to search cards earlier in the game and not whiff Yuya in those matchups where you need it. So I like it as 1, but I don't really like it potentially making it harder to get into champions, so I just kept it at 1. Then we got 4 Agumon from BT5 just for the search. We are playing the Omnimon X Antibody, so we can also double hit off this as potentially, but just a general good search card. And the same thing with the 4 Agumon X Antibody, pretty standard. We're going to be able to have the same effect of the other Agumon X Antibody to search. We don't hit a tamer, but we still keep our color red, so that way we can Digivolve on top into like our BT5 Greymons or our starter deck Greymons. And then to finish off the rookies for 13 total is, of course, 4 Promo Agumon. This is just your best rookie to build a stack with, because you're going to be able to get that plus 2k DP pretty much with everything that you have outside of the Omnimon, which isn't that big of a deal because if you go into the Omnimon, you're usually going for game anyway. So this card is just very staple, wanted to keep it as a 4. So now getting on into the champions, the first thing that people are probably going to notice is that I'm only playing 3 of the Black Greymon, and in fact, I'm playing 1 less champion total than a lot of other lists will probably see, and that's because I wanted to play red memory boost. So the reason why I'm pretty much playing like 1 less rookie than a lot of other lists and 1 less champion than a lot of other lists is because when I was playing this deck, it felt like I had enough consistency, except for trying to find things like specifically my top end cards. And so I wanted to play red memory boost, not because of just the search, but also because of the extra memory gain and what it can give you for your turns. So since I was playing red memory boost, it made sense for me to cut the 1 card that I can't hit with red memory boost. And this has been an up and a down, because I guess there are some times where I hit either the BT5 Greymon or the starter deck Greymon and I would want the blocker Greymon, but for the most part, I feel like I see this card pretty consistently, and there's not a lot of times where I really feel like I don't have the blocker Greymon stack. Just because of how much draw we have, or search on the bottom end that we have here, and just how much potential search that we have through things like Red Memory Boost and Cool Boy. You can just draw a lot, and so I just decided, because I like Red Memory Boost and what it gave for the deck, I was willing to cut down 1 and 1, because you can essentially search them out with Red Memory Boost anyway. Next up, we're going to be having the new Greymon X Antibody from BT11, and I think this card for the most part is generally stronger than the old Greymon X Antibody. It does have the inheritable where it is similar to the old Greymon X Antibody. Instead of removing 2 sources of the same level like the old one, this one you have to put an X Antibody option from sources to the bottom of the deck, meaning that you have to then essentially put another X Antibody source underneath to get that protection, as to where with the old Greymon X Antibody you could just have 2 level 3s and then 2 level 4s. The first time you strip the level 3s, the second time you strip level 4s, and then you have 2 protection. But this card has the upside of your turn, when you Digivolve into a card with Greymon in its name, you can reduce it by 1 for each color of that card. So since we are playing multiple ultimates that are dual color black-red that Digivolve for 4, we can Digivolve into them for 2, which is going to let us get up into our Megas way cheaper and way faster. So this card feels way more worth it, but I do like the other effect of the old Greymon X Antibody, which is why we're going to be playing the Metal Greymon Alterous mode, which we'll go through later. But for the most part, I think one-on-one, just because of this Your Turn effect, this one is much stronger than the old one. I guess the dual color part of it is very nice too, because then you're guaranteed to have the black-red when you go into BlackWargreymon if for some reason you aren't able to get into one of your black-red ultimates. So it's ultimately just better, but I do like the old effect, which is why we're going to be playing that Ultras mode. Then we got 2 BT5 Greymon. This one you can essentially Digivolve for 1, because if you have an Agumon in your source, when Digivolving you gain a memory, but that is nice, but for the most part, I really just like the plus 2k DP. A lot of the times when you Digivolve this, you're going and raising anyway, so you're still Digivolving for 2. I just like the boost in case you miss this boost, or you can put them together to get a plus 4k. So mostly it's just there for this, but the ability to Digivolve for 1 is a nice upside. Then we got 1 starter deck Greymon just for the security attack plus 1 extra swings. We also play a Gaomon in this list, so there are ways to be able to go extra aggressive and be able to just swing in for, potentially 2-3 checks. Now moving on into the ultimates, we're going to be playing a 3-3-2 split. We'll start off with the Alterous mode because, as mentioned, I wanted to play this because it has the same inheritable as the old Greymon X Antibody, and being able to pair this with the new Greymon X Antibody gives you a lot of the times 3 layers of protection, because you can, first time you'd get deleted, let's say you're playing against something like Beelstarmon, and they have fly bullets and things like happy bullet showering that you need to keep using the effect for, you can put the X Antibody to the bottom with the new Greymon X Antibody effect, which then allows you to then later put potentially another X Antibody underneath to give you another layer of protection. But then after you use that, if you need to use more protection, then you can use this effect to strip 2 level 3s or 2 level 4s, whatever you need. If you use the X Antibody first, and then you don't have another X Antibody in hand, you can use Alterous mode effect to just strip the 2 level 4s, which would include the new Greymon X Antibody, for more protection. And so it's just, they pair well for nice protection together, so I wanted to put them together. And it's also nice to just be able to Digivolve on top of the BT8 Metal Greymon just for free. So for BT8 Metal Greymon, we are just playing the 3 because I wanted to make room for the Alterous modes, but this card is still super insane. It is dual color that Digivolves for 4, but with the new Greymon X Antibody, we can get it to it for 2. We have the ability to de-Digivolve, which if you pair that with the Gaomon that we have, you can really devastate some really big stacks, because it also allows you to attack over your opponent's unsuspended Digimon. So being able to de-Digivolve, then go up into a Mega, and then that Mega swing over, they're now what was a Mega now an Ultimate, and clear their whole stack or whatever you need to do is very nice. The DP boost that we have in the later stack allows you to be able to just potentially have your Mega swing over their Mega, and then with BlackWargreymon's case, whenever a Digimon is deleted, then you unsuspend, so it just works out very well. We all know this card is super amazing in this list. And then to finish off the ultimates, we're going to have 3 Metal Greymon X Antibody from BT11. This card is super insane. Unlike the old Metal Greymon, you are going to have to Digivolve for 1, but you do have Cool Boys, so you could essentially make that for free. But when Digivolving until the end of your next turn, you can't have your DP reduced, and you can't de-Digivolve it. So this shuts off a lot. This is a completely unique effect of not being able to de-Digivolve, because there was a lot of things like Alphamon last format. I played a security control list that had a lot of de-Digivolve effects because the Alphamon would play against everything else, so I would de-Digivolve it, and that was a strategy. But now with a deck like this, you couldn't even do that. So you can get a lot of protection from this card and your inheritables with the Alterous mode and the Greymon X Antibody. It's super insane, but what makes this card even stronger is its inheritable, where whenever opponent's turn, whenever a Digimon becomes unsuspended, and this Digimon name contains Greymon or Omnimon, so at all times it'll contain that, you trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. So when we have multiple Megas that have Reboot, this is very nice because you can go up into this, put X Antibody underneath, you can swing, Digivolve up, And then when it goes into your opponent's reboot phase, you can unsuspend, trash their security after getting the swings, and it's just insanely aggressive. This card is super nice. I do kind of miss the old BlackWargreymon X Antibody because of the immediate aggression that it kind of gave you with the security attack +1 and the DP boost, but having this inheritable is super powerful, and it is pretty much a better replacement in the long run. Now to move on into the megas. I'm a really big fan of BT8 BlackWargreymon, which is why I'm playing it at 3. The ability to pop Tamers or Digimon, and then when you delete something, you can unsuspend. This card is just incredibly versatile, and I think it can shut down a lot of opposing decks that focus on Tamers, and there are some decks that really need their Tamers, so I like BlackWargreymon, so I wanted to play it at 3. I feel like this is not incredibly crazy. I think it's fairly standard. I think what's not going to be as standard is the fact that I'm only playing 2 BlackWargreymon X Antibody, but Galmon is very strong. Again, it does have the Digivolve effect, which you compare with the BT8 BlackWargreymon, which is very strong. It has Reboot, which goes with the new BlackWargreymon X Antibody, and it has Security Attack +1, so it has immediate aggression. I just really like this card. I think it works really well, so I wanted to have another alternative that's a bit more aggressive, as to where the BlackWargreymon X Antibody is a bit more defensive, but still playing the 2 BlackWargreymon X Antibody just because you're still going to be able to find this fairly consistency with how much search we have, and when you need to get up into, it's a mega that goes on top of your mega, so you have even more search essentially, like you get the draw off of your mega to potentially find this, so a lot of times you're going to be able to find this, so I don't think you need to play it as a high amount. This card does have Reboot, which is very nice for that BlackWargreymon X Antibody, as we mentioned, but it has opponent's turn. When your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP attacks, you can redirect it to this Digimon, and this is really big because there's a lot of decks that most of the time they only have one Digimon that they're swinging with, so you can redirect it, or they're have things where they're focusing on stacks, like for example the BlackWargreymon X Antibody. They're going to swing and you can redirect it to your BlackWargreymon X Antibody. Yes, they have Garurumon X Antibody protection and they can strip away, but you also have blocker inheritable on here, so if you have the blocker you can redirect, then they'll swing again, and then you can block, and that can really devastate a lot of decks like that. Or if you just have something that's a mega that's not as big as your BlackWargreymon, you can redirect, whatever. There's so many possibilities with this card, but the fact that there are so many times where decks only have one Digimon, that makes it so you can always redirect, so this effect is incredibly powerful. And for its secondary effect, another opponent's a turn effect when a Digimon becomes unsuspended, so any Digimon, and you have BlackWargreymon or X Antibody in this Digimon's sources, you get to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost, which, again, when a lot of decks only have one stack, that can be pretty detrimental, because that lowest play cost could still be 8 play cost. Or it could be something where you're just able to get rid of annoying cards that are like potentially floodgates that you want to get rid of. So regardless, this card is incredibly defensive, which is why I like to pair it with the Galmon, because BlackWargreymon and BlackWargreymon X Antibody still feel relatively defensive, and Galmon gives you a little bit of offensive burst. And to pair off the offensive burst, we are going to be having the Omnimon X Antibody, which is going to be the last Digimon in our deck. And I think this card just works very well in BlackWargreymon in general, because you're able to control the board a lot. We are playing 3 X Antibodies, so we are going to be able to reduce the cost of this by 2 at least, and then we can look in our opponent's security, we can trash one of them when digivolving and when attacking, which is very nice because not only do we have multiple X Antibodies in the deck, but when you go into your Omnimon X Antibody, more likely than not, you're going to have 2 level 6s in your sources, because you'll have the BlackWargreymon and then either the BlackWargreymon X Antibody or the Galmon, which means that you have, if this can survive, you could potentially trash your opponent's 3 security while swinging and just clear the entire security. And at 16k DP, this is able to swing into things like Death Xmon, which is very big, or Examon, which is very big, and be able to survive. So the survivability of this card is very nice, but I did want to play this. I don't think I have room to play more than 1. You could argue that there's potential to take out things like Red Memory Boost, but we are going to go over those, but that is going to wrap up our Digimon. Now, getting on into the options, it's fairly standard in my opinion. We have 3 X Antibody. We need this for multiple effects in the deck, so playing it at 3 just gives us the most consistency, and also because we have effects like the Greymon X Antibody, which could potentially put it at the bottom of your deck early, having 3 makes it so having multiple in your hand isn't that big of a deal, because you can essentially reload your protection after you have to use it. Maybe you swing into security and you get a hit into a removal card, you're able to use that X antibody, put another one underneath, so that way you're potentially safe for the next swing or going into your opponent's turn. So I liked it at 3. I was in between 2 or 3, but I decided to go with 3 because not only is it a nice card to hit out of security because you can gain a memory, but it's still something where if you have multiple, you can reload that safety and be able to just be more defensive and aggressive, which is what this deck is really focused around. So I think having this as much as possible was pretty key. Then moving on to Red Memory Boost, and honestly I put Red Memory Boost in here because there's just multiple times where I felt like I was 1 to 2 memory off to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, or I had to give my opponent 1 or 2 more memory than I really wanted to set things up, and Red Memory Boost just also helps find your top end. This card is just very consistent. I don't think there's really too much to say about it, but like I said, I did end up taking out the Rookie and the Champion to go up in here just because I felt like it gave me more versatility to find more things in my deck, gave me more versatility in my plays by giving me that delay effect, and I didn't really feel like going down 1 Champion, 1 Rookie decreased my consistency as much as putting these in increased my consistency, essentially. And moving on to our last option, 2 Hades Force, and this card is insane. It has the security of you delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost, which is nice, but it's not as crazy as its main effect. But starting off, if you use this card and you have a Digimon in play who has X antibody in their traits, you reduce this play cost by 2. So this costs 5. So another reason why X antibody is very important. Main, you get to choose one of your Digimon with Greymon in its name. You get to take its play cost. So for Galmon, BlackWargreymon X, it's 13, and for BlackWargreymon, it's 12. But let's say BlackWargreymon X, you get to take 13 play cost total of Tamers and Digimon off of your opponent's board. So you can clear so much off the board if you're clearing 13 off. That could be multiple Digimon. That could be 3 4-cost Tamers. That could be a 4-cost Tamer and an 8-drop or a 9-drop. There's so much you can do with that. Then one of your Digimon with Greymon in its name may attack your opponent. So you're playing this for 5. You can board wipe, and then you can send one of your Digimon with Reboot into your opponent's security to get those checks in. So this card is incredibly insane. The difference of having this card in the deck opposed to not having this card in the deck is huge. Like, if this card was just in regular BlackWargreymon now, it would be so insane. And having this card at your disposal is just been... it makes this deck another level. But with that being said, why am I only playing 2? And that's because of mostly space. There's really not a lot of space. I think the red memory boosts are kind of the biggest flex spot. And also, you really only need one of these a game a lot of the time. And whenever you're drawing so much and searching so much, you can either find one of these to get in your hand or find it in security. And either way, it does work pretty well. But with how controlling the deck already is, you really only need to see one of these. But it's so momentum swinging, like a game that could be close could become ballpark in your favor just by playing this card, moving all your opponent's Tamers or clearing their board and getting checks in. The thing is, when you have Reboot and you're able to swing in for multiple checks and clear your opponent's security and then Reboot, which makes it much harder for them to get rid of, they get put a lot of pressure on. So just being able to potentially clear board and then swing in, essentially give one of your Digimon Blitz, is going to put you in a lot of positions to just swing in, Reboot. Your opponent can't do anything. It comes back in your turn, and then you just swing in its game. And moving into the Tamers, we have 2 of the new Tamer, Yuya. This is going to be a memory Tamer, so it's very nice. We are replacing things like Tai or Hero, though, which I think Tai was very powerful, and that is something that I've missed playing this deck, is having that extra security attack pretty consistently from Tai. But Yuya's secondary effect is when you Digivolve into a Digimon with Greymon in its name, you can suspend this Tamer to give it plus 2k DP, and then if you Digivolve into a Digimon that is of the same level, then that Digimon is unaffected by your opponent's option cards till the end of their next turn. So this is really good, obviously, versus security decks. Being able to get up into a BlackWargreymon, you can give this the ability to be protected from options and then go into that opponent's next turn. Then they can't Chaos Degrade you, they can't Wyvern's Breath you, they can't Kitus Breath you, whatever it is. It's just incredibly good protection. One thing to note, though, is you don't really realize how little decks play hard removal cards until you play a card like this, where it's very beneficial, because there's a lot of matchups, I feel like, where the secondary effect almost never comes into play. But then there are obviously other matchups like things like Mastamon or Security Control where this card is very huge. I think because of this, if this deck gets really big, those type of decks are going to have to potentially adapt for that, or they might just not be able to. So we will see, but this card is pretty decent, but it's not crazy enough to where I'd play it at more than 2, because we do want to be playing the much cooler tamer, Cool Boy, which we are playing 3 of, the last card in the deck. And this is just pretty obvious. We are having a lot of Digimon that have X Antibody, so this lets us search. And we also have a lot of Digimon that are X Antibody of the same level, so it gives us that ability to gain a memory, draw a card, to give us more search, give us more consistency, more memory. And so Cool Boy is pretty obvious, and that's going to finish off our list. So let me know what you thought down below, what you liked, what you didn't like, and if you didn't have a list going into testing, I hope this is a good starting point for you. There are still multiple things that you can change. There's nothing solved about this at all, so definitely make some changes if you want to. But with that being said, I will catch you next time. Hope you have a fantastic day. Peace out.